Recently Trump's been out there talking a whole lot, really just dropping big old hints that he's going to be running in 2024, but can't make the formal announcement until I'm pretty sure it's like after the midterms and all of those elections anyways, because campaign finance, all that kind of good nonsense. But hey, Politico prophesized a little while back that, Trump's just going to fade away, okay? He's like, I received a comment on a video from way back in the day, probably around the same time of all the election nonsense in 2020, where Trump, oh my God, I can't believe that you're like a Trump supporter or something like that, because, oh my God, just give it a little while and Trump will be on The View and he'll just be pimping his new book. Yeah, okay, just because your side of the aisle is incredibly likely to be doing that doesn't mean that that's a universal truth out there. But hey, no, I mean, come on. What do I know, right? I'm just some asshole with a microphone and a web camera. I don't have all of the information that the good people at Politico do, because they did a compare and contrast a while back that just puts everybody's concerns to bed, because a Trump comeback in 2024, it's just not going to happen. We've seen this president type before. They always fade away. They always fade away, guys. Nothing to see here. Don't listen to anything. Don't pay attention to any of the rallies that Trump is holding more and more as the midterms lead up. All of his endorsements that, if you take a look at Texas, 33-0, all of the ones that he continues to do, it really just means nothing. He's just going to fade away into the background, okay? Donald Trump lost the presidency, but his opponents so far have not achieved the victory they want most, a fatal puncturing of the Trump movement, a repudiation so complete that it severs his astonishing grip on supporters and leaves them with no choice but to slink off stage and into the blurry past. That is a lot of projection that's right there. That just tells me that this author, John F. Harris, is big scared when it comes to Trump, and just really wishes he sees that there's finally a legitimate opposition from the right wing. And doesn't want to see it anymore, and just wants a return to the McCainites and the Mitt Romneys of the world. But to be fair, though, this was from, December of 2020, right after everything was all said and done. Or actually, I think the Texas lawsuit was just about to be filed, or it was just dismissed by the Supreme Court. It was something like that, right? Or I was like, oh, fuck, we're just going to have to regroup and, grit and bear it until the, end of 2022, and then wait for 2024 to come around. But why did we have to do any of that stuff? We could have just read this Politico article and had all of our aspirations tempered, because it's never going to happen. Clearly, there's been Trumps like this before, and they just go away. For now, Trump dominates conversations about both present and future. Remember, this was written late 2020. But he was going to fade away by now. His outlandish claims that he won the election except for comprehensive fraud have helped raise more than $200 million since Election Day. Yeah, the GOP was very efficient at fundraising off the back of Trump. None of it went to any of the lawsuits. And they didn't help out Trump in any form or fashion. They just fundraised for themselves. That's a Republican Party in action, my friends. Many of his partisans share his dream of recapturing the presidency of 2024. That's definitely not going to happen, right? For those who despise him, to paraphrase a famous Democratic speech, it seems clear the work goes on, the cause endures, and fear still lives, and the nightmare shall never die. Yeah, fear-mongering, that does sound like a Democratic speech. Except it will die. What? Most likely with even more speed and force than looks possible today. Oh, okay, cool. Tell us more. There are three primary reasons to be deeply skeptical that Trump's moment of dominating his party in public consciousness will continue long after January 20th, 2021, this is. Most important are the abundant precedents suggesting Trump does not have another important act in national politics. Oh, really? The perception that Trump will remain relevant hinges on the possibility that he is a unique historical figure. How isn't he? Okay, they're going to tell us anyways. Trump, however, is singular in one sense only. No politician of his stripe has ever achieved the presidency. You're telling me that there were no lifelong politicians before Trump, people with similar backgrounds, people who didn't have extensive careers in Washington, D.C., rise up and achieve the ranks of president? You're telling me that's something that's never happened before? Weird. In multiple other ways, he is a familiar American type. Okay, anticipated by such divisive figures as Joseph McCarthy, George Wallace, and Ross Perot. Yes, all three of those very successful presidents, right? Like Trump, they all possessed flamboyant, self-dramatizing personas. They tapped into genuine popular grievances towards elites and had ascended moments in which they caused the system to quake and intimidated conventional politicians of both parties. In every case, their movements decayed rapidly. Yeah, Ross Perot, by the way, like I'm aware of Joseph McCarthy and George Wallace, but Ross Perot ran as an independent, okay, and siphoned off enough support from George H.W. Bush to get Bill Clinton elected. So I don't know if that's a fair comparison or not, but then he ran again as well and wasn't nearly as popular as successful. But oh, okay, cool. Cults of personality in American politics are quite common. But they never live long. Please tell us more about how Hillary Clinton can still win, or that Bernie Sanders still has an outside shot. And Trump has offered no reason to suppose he will be an exception. Remember, this was written in 2020. And the second reason, there was a first there? Oh, okay. The second reason is Trump is not well positioned to retain his hold on public attention. Oh, you say that now. He has largely abandoned any pretense that he thinks about anything other than his personal resentments, projection much, or that he is trying to harness this movement to big ideas that will improve the lives of citizens. Oh my God. I wonder if this guy wants this article back. When he vaulted into presidential politics 5 years ago, Trump's still potent gifts for channeling anger, for mockery, for conspiracy theory. Yes, that's all he did for 4 years, right? Okay, please do continue. Were once channeled to an agenda that fellow Republicans were largely neglecting over trade, immigration, globalization, and a perception of national decline. These days, no one can follow Trump's Twitter feed and believe that he cares more about the public's problems than his own. That's not a recipe for sustaining political power. So I wonder if he would have wrote an addendum to this. The asshole who wrote this, I already forget his name because he's not important at all. He's faded into the background in, 5 minutes time? But because Trump doesn't have a Twitter feed anymore, and he really doesn't have any social media outlet, he's got that truth thing that's still fucking around. There's still several 100,000 people on a fucking waiting list for it. Whatever. If because his daily thoughts can't be put out there to a huge amount of people relative on Twitter every moment of every day, wouldn't that have caused them to fade away? Oh, okay, cool. These days, I'm sorry. Here's a third reason, because we already finished the second reason, which was very salient and it definitely held up well. A third reason to be bearish on Trump's future: politics never stand still, but Trump largely does. Oh, okay. As he leaves the White House, Trump should be haunted by the stark reality. If he had any capacity for self-calibration, he wouldn't be leaving the White House at all. He's got one set of political tools. When things are going well, his instinct is to double down on those. Yes, the reason that he's leaving the White House is because he trusted his own instincts, right? It wasn't the fact that whenever he delegated responsibilities to other people, normally he gave those responsibilities to insiders with bad advice. Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, Jared Kushner, a bunch of people giving him bad fucking advice that only enriched them. But you're right, though. He was obviously an egomaniacal, self-centered individual who just only listened to himself. Right. In political terms, a pandemic, where the fuck does that come in? Demanded modulation of Trump's blame-casting brand of politics, but also would have lavishly rewarded him if he had done so. That's funny too, because now that we've had a year and change of Joe Biden's pandemic response, he's been a breath of fresh air of not blaming anything, any downfalls on his response to anybody else, right? He's really worn his successes and failures on his lapel, right? Now, Trump didn't change because he didn't perceive the need and couldn't conceive of how to do so. That's a combination of flawed judgment and impoverished imagination that hardly supports optimism about the ability to retain power in new circumstances that await him once he's gone from the White House. Yeah, okay, enough of this shit, because it is aged like fine fucking milk. So when Trump runs again in 2024, which obviously he's going to, and due to his inability to change, he's not going to be running with Mike Pence. Imagine that. Former President Donald Trump will not pick his former vice president as running mate if he runs again, and for president in the upcoming election, it'll be Ron DeSantis. You can mark me down for this right now. I don't think the people would accept it, Trump told the Washington Examiner. Trump and Pence presented a unified front during much of their time in office, but diverged at the beginning of 2021. Let's be fair, that's when everything just kind of fucking crumbled. Trump felt Pence should have taken action as the official presiding over the electoral vote count in Congress. Well, he is the president of the Senate, or he was at the time, and there are certain powers and there are certain things he could have done in order to just question that. But that's, again, it's water under the bridge at this point. There's the Electoral Count Act that granted him certain powers that he could have exercised, but what, like I said, water under the bridge. But Pence said he felt he could not do anything, citing the U.S. Constitution. Again, Electoral Count Act of 1876. Mike and I had a great relationship, except for the very important factor that took place at the end. We had a very good relationship, Trump said in a new interview. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. I still like Mike. Trump previously said it was too early to say if he had asked Pence to be his running mate again. A request for comments and Pence advocacy organization wasn't immediately returned. Unlikely to be anyways. He'll probably be up there on that debate stage too. If anybody is dumb enough to challenge him in 2024, I really don't see that, but whatever, it'll be fun. Nobody has yet announced a bid for the 2024 election, but announcements are expected soon after the 2022 midterms are complete. But again, remember, according to Politico, Trump is just going to fade into the background. That's why he's continuing to stay prominent, even not long after that article was published, making appearances at CPAC, holding other rallies as well. But no, he's just going to fade away because previous president and precedents has already been set. Whatever, shit is retarded. But don't expect Mike Pence to be doing his Race Bannon impression and giving loving looks to Trump in the first row anymore. Probably all for the better. Fewer neocons around Trump, the better. And that better be the modus operandi for 2024. Draining the fucking swamp of all of these creatures. But up next, we got a couple of different, smaller stories of significant consequence. But there is a nice little through line there of leftist corruption and sympathy for kid diddlers. With that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. Why don't you follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.